This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. Let's talk about the news. From the New York Times, Russia-Ukraine war summary. Following announcements from Finland and Sweden about their intentions to join NATO in the near future, Turkey's government has announced its potential opposition to their joining, opposition that would be inconvenient as Turkey is part of NATO, and all NATO nations must give the okay for new members to join, though many analysts believe this seeming opposition is probably meant to extract concessions from the Swedish and Finnish governments and potentially other NATO nations as well. McDonald's has announced it will be selling its Russia-based assets after 3 decades of operation within the country, beginning at the very tail end of the Cold War. The company originally opted to pause operations in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but they've since said that leaving their 847 Russian locations closed and continuing to pay the 62,000 people it employs there isn't sustainable. The company has also reportedly been weighing the risks associated with upsetting the Russian government, which has been pressuring Western companies that want to stay in the country to resist Western sanctions, and they seem to have decided that risk isn't worth the potential payoff. From Bloomberg, wheat surges amid fears of shortages as India restricts exports. India's government has announced it will suspend overseas sales of locally produced wheat in order to reinforce its food security, following record-breaking heat waves that have reduced crop yields and dramatically truncated expected production. India doesn't produce much wheat for the global market, but because wheat supplies are already so sparse due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, both Russia and Ukraine being significant producers of exported wheat, even the relatively little bit India generally sells internationally being pulled from the market is pushing food prices for food importing nations even higher than they already are. And from Axios, court opens way for flood of Texas quote-unquote censorship lawsuits. The United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit has reversed a ruling that kept the Texas government from enforcing a social media law called HB 20, and tech industry groups have asked for an emergency stay, saying that the law makes doing business impossible because it strips them of their free speech rights and doesn't allow them to make editorial decisions about what they publish on their sites and apps. The ostensible intention of HB 20, which was passed by conservative lawmakers last September but blocked by a federal court judge before it went into effect, is to make it illegal for social media entities like Facebook or Twitter to block or ban or demonetize or otherwise restrict speech based on the ideological backing of that speech, and it allows individuals to sue companies they believe are violating this law. The folks behind the law claim it will prevent Facebook and other such networks from, as they see it, censoring conservative speech in particular, as it's commonly believed in conservative circles, though the data contests this assertion, that conservative users are removed or diminished to make more room for liberal voices on such networks. The outcome of this type of law is that social networks cannot legally ban spam accounts, pornography, racist, hateful, violent, or other such content that today, for a variety of reasons, tends to be booted or diminished in the eyes of the algorithms that determine who sees what. And the companies running these platforms claim this is untenable, because anyone can sue them at any time because they believe, with or without evidence, they're being discriminated against for their beliefs. so the companies will be in court all day, every day. This law also says these sites can't discriminate based on geography, which implies it would, remarkably, also be illegal to simply not operate in Texas to avoid this law. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com, and you can support this and other related projects like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts at understandery.com.